All right, hello and welcome to another Expert Inside interview. My name is John Golden from SalesPOP, online sales magazine, and Coavera, formerly Pipeliner CRM, joining you as usual from a sunny San Diego. And today I'm delighted to be joined by Edward Brady, who's just up the road in El Segundo in LA. How are you doing, Edward?
I'm doing great. John, thanks for having me. I'm really excited to be here.
Of course, and you were a CFA, realtor, and CRCP and spent 25 years at the SEC. You've conducted hundreds of federal examinations of broker-dealers and investment advisors, so you have that insider perspective. You're a U.S. Army Reserve veteran. Thank you for your service. Award-winning natural bodybuilder. Excellent. I got to tell my son about this because he's big into that stuff. And you applied the same disciplines as you do for bodybuilding to wealth building. You're the author of Awaken Your Financial Star. And that's what we want to talk about today is, why is it, there's a lot of, I hear that, and because when I was doing my research on this for the interview, I was focusing in and I was thinking, I hear this a lot too. Like, people who are on paper, but earning a lot of money, right? High earners, good income, good jobs, all of this. But yet everybody is financially stressed, or they feel like they don't have enough, or they have financial insecurity, and they're stuck, right? Why is that so common?
I think that there's really two reasons why income is not an indication of financial security. One is lifestyle creep. I mean, this is just natural. You make more money. Why do you earn money? Because you want to spend it. You want to do things that are fun. You want to have nice things. And so the temptation is always, now I can get a huge loan for this fancy car. I call that lifestyle creep. And I've experienced it myself. And when I was just starting out in my career, I'd finally saved enough to buy a Corvette. And I went to the dealership. I was all excited. Nobody waited on me. I went home, a little disappointed, realized the stock market had crashed. It was 2003. I was like, what am I thinking? I need to invest in equity. So I bought an equity mutual fund. In 6 months, it was up 50%. And I was like, oh my God. The light bulb went off. I realized that money would have earned nothing, and in a few years, it would have been worth nothing. So I call that lifestyle creep, and we all encounter it. The other piece is inflation. We generally earn more than our parents did, and my father earned a decent salary as a program analyst. But when we talk about the numbers that he was talking about to buy a house in 1970, I got to laugh, because they're so small compared to today's numbers. So that's just natural. But it's been happening since the Roman Empire, the Chinese dynasties. Governments have been inflating our currencies. They're not going to stop. So I think that's a lot of the cause as to why people find it harder to get ahead, as time progresses.
The interesting thing is, Edward, too, isn't it? Is, just because you have a big job, maybe you earn a lot of money or whatever, it doesn't mean that you're a financial wizard, right? You don't understand your own finance. You understand invest, and I think that's part of the gap, is like, because we're so comfortable in the area that we're expert in, the job we have. And then maybe the financial, all that other stuff, we're not so secure about. So we kind of put it, we put it on the long finger, as we say in Ireland.
Yeah, and it's funny you say that, because that's kind of why I wrote the book. I started out right out of high school, very ambitious. I wanted to make a lot of money. Ended up losing my entire first investment by buying a stock that went bankrupt. And instead of being discouraged, I became fascinated. I ended up majoring in real estate and finance. And what I realized along the way was that the finance presents this illusion of precision. And I would rather be generally right than precisely wrong. But the principle in the book distilled down to 4 elements, which are an acronym called STAR: savings, time, assets, returns. And I wrote the book almost entirely with no math. So, and I've told other people this, the math works for everybody, but not everybody likes math. And if you're a marketing major, or, you're the creative type, maybe, finance was not meant for you, but that doesn't mean you can't benefit from the principles. And that's really why I wrote the book, to help people, but not necessarily that they have to become financial experts. They just have to understand some basic principles.
Yeah, I know exactly. And I had this conversation recently with somebody who was on a similar thing, and I said it was similar when I got my first executive level job, and I had a budget and a department and all of this kind of stuff. And to be honest, and the spreadsheet was horrendous. It was about 50 Excel sheet all threaded together. But my point being, first thing I did was I bought finance for non-financial managers, just so I understood at a level. I didn't want to become an accountant. I didn't want to do the financial, but I wanted to understand it. And I think to your point is the same thing, is just educating yourself to understand.
Exactly. Yeah, you don't have to become a financial expert to benefit from the principles. And you really, if it's not your forte or it's not your interest, or you don't need to. But one of the biggest things that I've seen amongst friends and acquaintances is that the biggest thing can hold people back is not necessarily that they can't understand or it's too difficult, because it's not that complicated to understand these principles. But inattention, not doing it, can make a huge difference. If you don't invest for 40 years, you've got nothing, right? But even if you get something wrong, one, you're going to learn from it. Two, it's going to be invested. It's going to be earning something. Maybe you could have done better, but at least you've invested. So I think that's something that's very important, is pay attention to it. Even if you don't necessarily like it, it's important for all of us. So that's something I've kind of observed with, friends that have asked for help on understanding stuff.
So what's your advice then to somebody who comes to you and goes, Edward, I need to invest. I haven't invested. I've got this stuff. I don't really have any money. And you're going, well, you get paid pretty well, but I don't really have any money to invest. So what do I do?
Yeah, that's the thing. It can feel like we don't have any money. And so until you really look at where's your money going. Something that was really eye-opening for me was when I joined the Army. I had a lot of things that I thought were necessities, and then you're kind of thrown into things, and all of a sudden, the Army provides a lot of those things that are necessities, and you realize that all your necessities are kind of taken care of. You got food, you got uniforms, you got a place to stay, and you've got medical, and now, but you're able to save. But I'm making less than, as an enlisted person, I was making less than somebody at McDonald's. I was like, what? This is kind of weird. And then I realized that all this stuff that I thought was necessities, or that I needed rather, were really luxuries. And it kind of changed my perspective. So that's one thing, is like, what are you spending money on? Is it a luxury or is it a necessity? If it's a necessity, then, there's really nothing you can do. If maybe earn more at that point, but you're talking about somebody who earns a good salary, but feels squeezed anyway. But generally that's because we're spending things on money, maybe not using the best value, or using the most efficient means, or just, being frivolous.
Yeah.
And so those are definitely ways to think about your financing. But there's other ways. Let's say you're an employee, and you have access to a 401k. You're getting hammered on taxes because you make a lot of money. So that would be one way you can shield a little bit from taxes. Another would be like a health savings account or a flexible spending account. So if you're an employee, those are ways to shield your income and save. Never see it, lock it up. Actually, there's penalties if you take it out. So that's great when you're talking about long-term investing. So that's one aspect, is just, okay, well, what am I spending my money on? How can I save more efficiently? Pay yourself first. Now, if you're a business owner, then you have the advantage of spending money before you get taxed.
Mm-hmm.
And then again, look, what is it, like the Pareto principle, right? Oh, the 20% of activity is worth 80% of effect, or whatever they.
Mm-hmm.
I don't know the exact.
Yeah, no, that was good.
thing.
No.
Close. It's close. A general idea, right?
So tell me, what are some of the traps or myths that people fall into around, market noise or financial myths, or things that maybe people believe that just aren't true or are semi-true?
I think one of the biggest things as far as beliefs that not only is not true, but really serves to hold us back. Now, I was raised Catholic, and we were always told, what is it? A rich man is harder to get into heaven than a camel through the eye of the needle. And
Mhm.
some people interpret that as, oh, I can't go to heaven if I'm rich.
Mhm.
And now, after being a little bit older, a little bit more mature, I view it differently. All of us are going to leave with nothing. You're leaving naked. You're not even leaving with the clays on your back. But that doesn't mean that you should be poor. As a matter of fact, I think that not having money is not a virtue, but it's a vulnerability.
Yeah.
And so I think that's a belief that really holds people back. I know for myself, it held me back a little bit. Do I really want to be wealthy? Is that going to make me a bad person? But Marcus Aurelius was a Roman emperor.
Mm-hmm.
And I think that his life really illustrated a point that I tried to make in the book, which is money is a tool. Money and power do not make you corrupt.
Mm-hmm.
You are a person, and money is a tool. How you behave is you. That's on you. So you can try to blame it on money. And if you have money, then, maybe some people believe you, but I'm not going to believe you, because it's you doing that act.
Mm-hmm.
And so money is not good or bad. It's a tool. And we are the perpetrators of either good things, like Warren Buffett giving away $200 billion to help people.
Mm-hmm.
That's pretty admirable, but he was extremely wealthy. I won't name other people that I have different views of, but I think it's really true that that's a belief that holds people, especially people like myself that were raised strict Catholics, but over time you kind of realize that, hey, some of these things are really not true.
Mm. And also, I think some people come from scarcity, right? Mindsets about scarcity,
Right.
or growing up. Like, I mean, growing up, we've seen parents like trying to balance a checkbook, trying to like get stuff in so you could. When our family had 5 kids, so they were always like struggling to try and make everything just add up. So. And I think when people come from backgrounds like that, they start to develop an idea that that's the way life is. So it's a normal state to be like that, even though you're earning maybe so much more than maybe your parents' circumstance. You don't have the same circumstances, but you're operating in the same way unnecessarily.
Right, that's true. I had also a large family. We had 5 or 6 of us, rather. So I have 5 brothers and sisters. There was 3 boys and 3 girls, which is ironic because my last name is Brady, so we really were the Brady bunch. But definitely not well behaved like them. We were like the dysfunctional Brady bunch. But yeah, I know what you mean. It's like, if I get something, it's not going to be new. It's going to be hand me down as a kid. And I remember admiring my friends who would get, a new surfboard, a new bike, or whatever. And if I got it, I was just thrilled if it was functional,
Right. Yeah.
But yeah, so I can totally relate to that. And I think that, but you can also use that as a drive, right? You say, okay, well, I didn't have that as a kid, so now I want to have it, or I want to provide it for my kids. But I think that one of the things it shouldn't be like an obsession. So you can go too far with that too. I think it's a tool, and you shouldn't be obsessed with it, but definitely don't want to be without it, and not necessarily even money in itself, because really, how much utility does this little piece of paper have?
Yeah.
Right.
No.
If I was to burn another piece of paper, you wouldn't get emotional. But if I burn $100 bills in front of you, you might get upset. Right.
I'd be saying, I want your job.
Right.
I'm thinking, if you can burn $100 bills live on or on the internet, like you, then I want your job. And so here's the thing is, Edward, I think part of it too is, the financial education and stuff. It's kind of like almost non-existent to many degrees, and people don't grow up with any of these skills. And even when they do get, some of the financial education out there is so out of date, perhaps, and maybe so kind of old school. What should what your book and that, like, how would you advise people to learn, if they wanted to get some good financial education?
I think there's a plethora of fantastic books, but the problem is there are so many. But 5% of the financial books are fantastic. When you read 95%, to get to that 5%. And so one of the benefits of this particular book is I do cover a lot of those principles. And I spent a lifetime being fascinated in this subject. And I know I've read for over 300 books, because that's how many books I have in my Audible library alone. So what I did is I took the end, instead of having a traditional bibliography per se, I called it further reading. And I broke it down into different types of, or subjects, like mindset, or stocks, or options, or mutual funds, or different areas that, okay, now you got the basics. And actually, here's the one of the drafts of the book. But here's the back section, or the further reading section. You can see they have different headings of books that I consider to be excellent. So, like, Peter Lynch's One Up on Wall Street, fantastic book if you want to invest in stocks, or John Bogle's book on mutual funds. Those are excellent books. And so I highlight that in the back of the book. So what I would say is, if you're brand new to investing, pick up my book first, learn the basics, learn basics that would be taught to a brand new finance student, right? But in such a way that you're not learning math, you're just learning the components of it.
Right.
And then go to the further reading section. And what area of investing are you really fascinated with? Is it real estate? Is it stocks? Is it mutual funds? What area do you feel like you could master? Because that's important. You got to feel like you can do it. And then learn about that, by picking up a few of those books, or audible books, or whatever, and become an expert in that area. One of the things I really learned at the SEC is it's hard to detect if somebody's lying. But when you become an expert in a particular area, it's much easier to determine when somebody's BSing you, right? Because you know what right looks like. And that was one of the reasons I became a CFA. Was I wanted to, after Madoff happened, I was like, hey, this was not an easy fraud to detect. And the way he could have been caught was, like, he had a pretty elaborate scheme. You had to basically go to DTC and determine that account was false, right? And if you'd done that, well, then you could have caught him, right? But he used all kinds of tactics, fake, papers. He berated examiners. He complimented. He's using all these manipulative tactics, right? And then you look at that and you go, wow, this is not easy. So at that point, I decided, look, I need to become an expert. If I'm going to continue doing this, I need to become an expert. And so I started studying for the CFA. And along the way, I really realized, actually, you said this earlier, is that our system is not educating people enough to help them avoid these frauds, right? And I talk about this in the book about custody. if you had determined that Madoff had custody and you made a rule to yourself that, look, I'm not going to invest them with anybody, or I'm not going to give them a lot of money at least, because maybe those returns are so enticing, which,
Right.
right? Because that's always the truth, right? Every fraud is going to be like that.
Sure.
Maybe I'll give him a little bit of money, but I'm not going to give him everything because he has custody. If you'd done that, you could have avoided that fraud and many frauds, because custody means they have control. There's no third party kind of monitoring, objective third party, right? So you don't have a big, huge brokerage firm that really doesn't care if this guy makes it or loses, right? They just want to keep their customers.
Yep.
So that's critically important. And so if that piece was taught to everybody, which is covered in my book, then that fraud could not happen, because nobody would give them much money. We go, oh, you have custody. Okay, you get like $10,000 or whatever is small to you, 5,000.
Yeah, and that's why I think it's,
Mm-hmm.
and that's why I think it's so important for books like yours, Edward, is that demystify these things, and so give you, so that you can come into it with a certain amount of knowledge. Because that's, I think, the other thing. Just lastly, the other thing is, so, doing this podcast, I tell you, I have come across so many different ways of investing, right? So many different things you could invest in. So, and things that I'd never even thought about before myself. And I think I'd be typical of a lot of people. You think, oh, stocks, real estate, whatever. But, you don't realize there's a whole range of other things you could do as well.
Right. Yeah. And that was something that I tried to avoid with the book, actually. I don't want to be too prescriptive.
Yeah.
I don't want to tell you, this is the way you're going to make money, right? Because maybe you're smarter than me. Maybe you can figure out a better way, right? So that I tried to give people the components.
Yeah.
And I actually say that there's a quote from Sun Tzu, The Art of War. It talks about, like, a great general is like water. He flows where there's resistance. And I didn't want this book to be out of date in 5 years. Maybe in 5 years, real estate doesn't make sense. Maybe stocks don't make sense. I don't know. But I didn't want that to be the case. So I wanted to focus on the components that will be true 100 years from now.
Yeah.
And as a matter of fact, there's a Babylonian stone in the Louvre in France that talks about compounding. 2000 BC. These are not new principles. So I have full confidence that the principles covered in my book will last the next 100 years, or at least for, I mean, that's longer than me. So
yeah, no, absolutely. No, and I think that's such an excellent point. Of course, the Babylonian stone in the Louvre should be returned to its original owners, but that's just my Irish coming out of me now, where all the museums in Europe are full of stuff stolen from other countries.
Right.
Yeah. Well, listen, Edward, this has been fascinating. All of Edward's information will be below this video. But before we go, please do remind people, and by the way, show the cover of the book again for everyone so they can see it.
Oh, I got a question for you. Do you like shiny or matte? I still haven't cutted.
That's a good point. I kind of like shiny, to be honest, because it keeps.
Oh, wait, this is the shiny.
A certain newness to it. Yeah. Yeah. There you go. Awaken Your Financial Star. Perfect.
Yeah. So this is obviously the draft copy. I printed off a few copies just so we can make sure everything printed nicely. It's going to be available on Amazon on Bastille Day, July 14th, of all things. So French Independence Day. And I think my editor did that because I was like, why are we publishing on July 14th? But I kind of liked it after she did that, because it was a perfect day to declare your financial independence.
Yeah. No, I like it, absolutely. And by the way, when this goes out, it'll be probably about 3 weeks from when we're recording, so it'll be around the same time as the book.
Fantastic. So it'll be available at that time. It'll be available in Kindle form, on paperback, and a hard copy. I am working on the Audible version, but I just realized that I missed the deadline to get it out on the 14th, and think today was the deadline, and I clearly have missed that. So it looks like the Audible version is going to come out in August sometime.
It's going to be a little inaudible for a while.
Exactly. So I know for myself, that's how I listen, or that's how I listen to most books, is I'll listen to it on Audible. So that was a big thing for me. I wanted to make sure it was an Audible format. And since there's not a lot of math in the book, it's really not losing much, except for maybe the graphs and stuff, which will be available in a accompanying PDF. Yeah. But so it'll be available on Amazon for sure in mid-July, and excited to see how people react to it. We have our first review from Editorial Review, which was nice. And they said they loved the book. So good objective reviews, which is different, definitely, than having friends and family, because you always wonder, like, are they being honest?
Yeah. Well, you have the one who's always going to overpraise everything you do. It's fantastic. And then you have probably another family member who's always going to pour cold water on it. So you need to get independent.
Right.
Yeah. Well, listen, thanks a lot, Edward. Thank you for watching and listening. And I'll see you all again very soon. Thank you.